This experience happened when I was 9 years old and I loved to play with my cousin when I was a kid. I would often go to the river near his house to play. It was a memory we both shared. Sometimes we would take some food with us to play by the river. It was a summer afternoon and the weather was very hot. My cousin and I decided to go to the river to play. While playing by the river, we met a stray dog. It didn't look aggressive. I thought it was just hungry and needed some food. When I tried to hand it a piece of bread, suddenly the dog lunged at me and I was very scared. I fell to the ground and then it pinned itself on top of me and kept biting me. In the process, I felt like a defenseless rag doll. I tried to struggle, but the dog's mouth was so strong that I couldn't get rid of it. I didn't understand why the dog attacked me so aggressively and I was very confused. Later I learned that the dog had rabies and that its owner had abandoned it. It started to tear my neck. I felt that the flesh on my neck was about to be bitten off by it. At this point, my cousin tried to pull the dog away from me, but his strength was too small. I watched as its teeth closed in on my face again and I felt like I was going to die here today. Suddenly, the dog stopped, and it seemed to sense something different. I saw it lift its head and look in a certain direction. I felt very confused and wondered what was going on. Then, I heard a voice telling me, "Kick it with your foot." I didn't know where the voice was coming from, but I knew I had to act now. I lifted my foot and kicked hard at the dog. I felt my body fill with power. I kicked the dog out of the air. It flew far in the air and then fell to the ground. I felt like I had just accomplished something supernatural. It seemed impossible to me that even a grown man could kick something that high. I didn't know where the sound came from, but I knew it was a miracle. I knew my life had been saved. When I stood up, I didn't feel very much pain. My cousin was ready to help me home, and we walked home along the path. As we were approaching home, I saw my family running toward me from a distance. I saw my dad with a shotgun in his hand and a look of panic on their faces. As they approached, I told them I was fine. My father took me to the hospital in town for a brief bandage. Then we went home. When I woke up the next morning, my throat felt very uncomfortable. My mother handed me a glass of water, but the moment I saw it, I felt an inexplicable fear. I didn't want to drink it, or even go near it. After a while, I was covered in sweat. My body began to jerk uncontrollably. My father saw that the situation was getting worse and was ready to take me to the hospital. I still remember the scene. I was lying in the back seat with my head on my mother's lap. My mind was in turmoil and I could feel the pain all over my body. My mom was holding my hand tightly and mouthing my name. I knew she was very scared. I struggled to stay awake during that long 30-minute drive because I knew it was my only hope. I kept telling myself that I couldn't die. I felt like my life was passing me by a little bit. When we arrived at the hospital, I was admitted to the emergency room. I was lying in a cold hospital bed and felt my whole body shaking. I could see doctors all around me going about their business. My vision was getting blurry. When I woke up again, I was out of my body. I was floating in the air, and I saw my other self lying in bed. All my pain was now gone. This surprised and disconcerted me. Suddenly, I realized that I might be dead. I began to worry about my mom and family. Suddenly, I appeared in the hallway of the hospital. I saw my mom sitting there and she kept crying. I wanted to comfort her and tell her that I was fine. But I found myself unable to make a sound. I became very helpless. I started swinging my arms in front of my mother, hoping she would notice me. But it was all to no avail. I didn't know if I was really dead or how to get back into my body. I was thinking, where am I now? Where am I going now? It was at this time that I appeared in a tunnel. The tunnel was very dark and I couldn't see anything. As I started to ascend, the tunnel became brighter and brighter. I felt like I was moving upward at a very fast speed, like a rocket launch. When I reached the top, I found myself floating in a sea of clouds. 3 golden gates appeared in front of me. The gates were studded with gems of various colors. The largest jewel was as big as a car. These gates were so large that it took me a long time to see where they ended. I marveled at their grandeur and magnificence and felt like I had entered a mysterious and wonderful place. I walked into the door closest to me. As I walked in, I was stunned by the sight before me. I had come into a huge space that looked like a giant zoo. All around me were many animals I had never seen before. I saw an elephant with huge ears that was eating a tree branch. There was also a monkey that was making faces at me. There were also some small animals whose names I didn't know, but they were cute and friendly. Suddenly, I felt that something was approaching me. I turned around and was surprised to find a huge lion staring at me. My first reaction was panic, but as I looked into its eyes, I could feel its kindness. I began to relax a bit because I knew that the lion represented authority and power in Christianity. The lion came toward me with a very powerful stride. The lion made a low voice and said, "Welcome to heaven, my friend." I was surprised to find that I could understand the lion's words. So I curiously asked the lion, "Why can I communicate with you?" The lion replied, "Because you are now in heaven, a place where there are no boundaries or limits. Here, all our lives are imbued with divine power, including our language." I couldn't resist asking again, "So all animals come to heaven?" The lion replied, "Yes, my friend. All lives will be saved and redeemed, and none will be forgotten. In this sacred place, every life is respected." Suddenly, I saw a sheepdog running in the distance. Although it was still some distance away from me, I recognized it immediately. It was a pet dog I had as a child, and it had a very distinctive gray spot on its ear. It has been with me since I was born. We played and grew up together. When I was 7 years old, he left me. I was crying for days. I even blamed my father for not taking it to the hospital. When I saw it in front of me, I felt like I was back in that good time. I held it in my arms like I used to, and it still smelled so familiar. I told it how much I missed it. Suddenly, it spoke. Although I knew this was heaven, I was still surprised. It told me that it was very grateful for my care and love, but that its mission had been accomplished and it had to leave me. I can't blame my father for this incident. I realized that every life has its own unique meaning. Not only humans, but all animals have their own mission. Suddenly, its body gradually became a blur, and finally disappeared into the air. Everything around me was slowly disappearing. Suddenly, a light appeared in front of my left. When that light appeared in front of my left, I felt a strong feeling of love. This feeling made me feel very comfortable and satisfied. Suddenly, I heard a male voice. He told me, "Your time is up." I didn't understand what it meant, so I asked him, "Who are you? I don't understand what you are talking about." He replied, "It's time to go back. I don't want to go back, I want to stay in this place of love. He gave me a reason, my mom needed me. For the sake of my family, I knew I had to go back. When I opened my eyes, it was the next morning. I found myself lying in a hospital bed. I looked out the window and saw Jesus. He radiated a dazzling light around him. He had eyes full of love and wisdom, and he also had golden brown hair and a beard. His smile made me feel peaceful. And he seemed to affirm my choice. At that moment, my mom walked in. I turned my head to my mom and asked her if she saw Jesus in the window. She looked worried and told me she hadn't seen anything and that I might be hallucinating. I heard her words and felt a little lost in my heart. Could I really be hallucinating? But my experience was so real again. Many years have passed since this experience, but I can recall many details every time. Later, I became a volunteer for an animal protection organization. I deeply realized that animals need our help more than humans. They cannot protect themselves as we humans can. This organization mainly rescues some animals that have been abandoned by their owners. These animals' ability to survive in the wild has deteriorated and they need our help to continue to survive. In my work with this organization, I have seen many scenes of animals being abused and abandoned, and I have experienced many touching stories. One in particular made a deep impression on me. I remember when we found a stray dog in an isolated area. It was curled up in a corner with wounds from abuse. We approached it slowly, trying to convince it that we would not hurt it. However, it kept looking at us warily. I realized that the dog had probably been abandoned by its owner for a long time and was hostile to humans. We spent a lot of time and effort to make it gradually develop trust in us. We brought food and water to feed it. We took it to the hospital to receive treatment. With us by its side, it gradually adapted to its new environment. Slowly, the hostility in its eyes disappeared. Its tail began to wag and make happy noises. When the dog was fully recovered, we started to look for a suitable home for it. Eventually, a kind person took it in. It could finally live in peace and enjoy the warmth given by humans. Therefore, I would like to urge everyone not to hurt animals.